Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Clinical Leadership Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Alex Earl, and I'm joined today by Dr. Kolten Pedigo, who is a sports chiropractor in Marion, Illinois. He is the owner of Southern Illinois Spine and Rehab, where he specializes in musculoskeletal rehab and has a particular interest in helping weightlifters migrate out of the medical system after sustaining an injury and getting back into the activity and sport that they love, which is weightlifting. He is a sought after clinician by many in rural Illinois, as well as he is growing in his online presence. And therefore, people are finding him from all over the country, including recently patients have found him from Florida and Utah and have traveled to spend more time with him in what is called his intensive therapy sessions, which is pretty exciting for him in the small town of Marion, Illinois. And lastly, he is a proud member of our Midwest Business Mastermind. I've been fortunate to get to know Kolten over the last couple of years, but really more deeply, I should say, over the last 14 months as he started to really try to grow his business and try to get his business to the next level. And so that's why he joined our mastermind last year and is continuing on again this year. Some of the highlights that we talk about on today's show include how he started a business right after coming out of school and right before an international pandemic. Maybe you've heard of one, which was 4 years ago, believe it or not. Another thing we talk about was how Kolten noticed his clinical skills were developing coming out of school and through the first year of practice, and how he has recently noticed his business skills are also growing at least the same rate as his clinical skills, which is fantastic. Because as I do like to talk on a lot of our one-on-one calls or in our group mastermind calls, is that there's a fundamental difference between growing your clinical skills and also growing your business skills. And the last thing we talked about in depth was the advice that Kolten would give you if you find yourself feeling alone in your solo practice like he was. And we do talk about much, much more on today's episode. I think you'll get a lot of value out of his experience and the things that he has to say from the trenches in musculoskeletal rehab. In other news, and this is another friendly reminder that today's show is sponsored by Midwest Rehabilitation Institute. Midwest Rehabilitation Institute helps chiropractors and physical therapists like you by providing the clarity you are desperately searching for in order to achieve exceptional outcomes with your patients, your clients, and ultimately your business. And if you guys wouldn't mind doing me this one favor, it would mean the absolute world to me if you could subscribe. I know a lot of times people see either on an email blast, they see the new episodes coming out. They see on social media that there's a new episode out, but you're not yet subscribed. So please do me that favor and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Could be Spotify, Apple, wherever you see your podcasts come out. Make sure you subscribe to that. Secondly, if you could also screenshot the podcast and share your number one takeaway from today's episode on your Instagram story and tag us in it. You could tag me directly, which is my Instagram handle is at Dr. Alex Earl DC, or if you want to, you can tag Midwest, which is at Midwest Rehab. And we will pick one person and we will send you some Midwest swag. If you share it on your story, we'll pick a random person and send you some swag in the mail as a way of saying thank you. Lastly, I know I said one thing, but I guess there's three things. The third thing is if you would also sign up for our newsletter. I send out a Midwest Monday every Monday. It's the same structure, but it's a little bit of a rant by yours truly, followed by a quote that I've been pondering lately. And at the very bottom of the email, I do try to wrap it up nicely with a complete breakdown of all the upcoming events that we have and even links to our most recent podcasts like this one. So if you could, that would be super helpful and greatly appreciated if you could go participate and share this valuable content with other people just like you. And in other news, I'd also like to introduce our second sponsor, Jane, which is a clinic management software and EMR with a human touch. Whether you're switching your software or going paperless for the first time, The Jane team knows that the onboarding process can feel a little overwhelming. That's why with Jane, you don't just get a software, you get the whole team. Included in every Jane subscription is their award-winning customer service available by phone, email, and chat whenever you need it. It's top-notch, guys. It's fantastic. They have the best customer service, including weekends on Saturdays. If you run into any issues, they're fantastic. Reach out to them if you have Jane already, or if you're interested. You can also book a free account setup consultation to review your account and ensure that you feel confident about going live. And if you'd like some extra advice along the way, you can tap into a lovely community of practitioners, clinic owners, and front desk staff through Jane's community Facebook group. If you're interested in making the switch to Jane, head on over to jane.app/switch to book a one-on-one demo with a member of their support team. And don't forget to mention my personal code MWRI, that's MWRI at the time of sign up, for a free or a 1-month grace period on your new Jane account. Now, buckle up, everybody. Here we go with Dr. Kolten Pedigo. Yeah, well, welcome to the show. Welcome to the Clinical Leadership Podcast. Glad to have you on, Kolten. And we're going to start off a little differently than we've done in the past with some of our guests, right? And so you're a good sport and you're willing to humor me just so that people could get a glimpse as to who you are, what makes you tick. And also, you know, I get to learn some new things about you for the next couple of seconds here. So the point of the game here to start off with is rapid fire. Don't think I'll just move on to the next question. All right. So we got to go quickly and then we'll get into the meat and potatoes of today's episode. So you ready? I'm ready.
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it. All right. 15 questions, rapid fire. Ready? If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Teleportation.
Interesting. We're going to come back to some of these, I think. All right. If you could swap lives with any fictional character for a day, who would it be?
Mr. Incredible.
Would you rather live in Florida or California?
Florida.
Beach or mountains?
Beach.
What's the most adventurous thing you've ever done?
Packed up in a car with some college friends and drove 15 hours to a wedding on the beach of a guy we only knew for 2 months.
There's got to be some good stories there as well. If you could only eat one item of food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Beef.
Good choice. If you could meet any historical figure, who would it be and why?
Probably Stan Musial.
Wow, I have no idea who that is. You have to tell me more about who that is. What's your favorite way to
baseball player.
Oh, really? Okay. What's your favorite way to unwind after a long day?
Just come home with the family, put the phone down, and just come home and be present.
Awesome. Awesome. And last one, what was the last TV show that you binged?
Suits.
Oh, hey, same. That's what we're going through right now.
Mhm.
Well done. Well done. We're on the 9th season.
Same.
Just a couple of episodes left, and we're ready for it to be over. It's had a good show. It's had a good line, good run. But yeah, this is not the Suits review podcast, but this is the Clinical Leadership Podcast. But I thought I'd start us off just a little differently today. Again, thanks for humoring me with just kind of the get to know you a little bit better. For those of you who don't know, this is Kolten Pedigo. Kolten, thank you for coming on the show. Share with us your journey, your story in business. Tell us who you are, where you're from, what you do, and who you serve in your community. And I'll kind of unpack it from there. But just tell us more about yourself as we kind of get to know you a little bit more today.
Yeah. So as you said, my name's Kolten. I have lived in rural Southern Illinois my entire life. That's where I currently practice. When I went to Logan, I already knew I wanted to open a practice right out of school. So with that being said, all through school, I pretty much put all my time and effort outside of class, developing the game plan, talking to people, and just kind of getting in the mode of, hey, as soon as my license gets approved by the state and everything else is ready to roll, I'm opening my doors. So I graduated in December of 19. The weekend after graduation, I married my high school sweetheart. And then January, I opened my doors. And 3 weeks after that, COVID happened, as everyone knows. So that was an interesting journey. I think looking back, I did it the best way I could have without knowing it at the time. I went into business with the mindset of I'm not going to take out any business loans. I want zero debt on my business, and I'm just going to grow it from the ground up with nothing. And so that's not for everyone. That's just how we wanted to do it because we knew for at least for the first year we were going to live off one income, my wife's. Um, so we just took like $1,000 from the little bit of money we had from college left over in our bank accounts, and we opened my clinic. I rented a 238 square foot room in an office building. It was like $320 a month, all inclusive, utilities, everything. So it's a pretty sweet deal. And then obviously I kept my overhead low, so EHR, the essentials. And then I didn't have to worry, hey, what's going to be happening in the world? How's business going to go? I'm new to the area, and I'm a self-pay practice, which is unheard of in rural Southern Illinois. So how is this going to go? Well, I didn't have to worry about money because I really only had to see like a couple people a month to cover my bills. So anything over that obviously was money in the bank. So I was very fortunate that I started my business that way because I really don't know, if I would have taken on a $2,000 lease plus utilities plus a $100,000 business loan or whatever, where I would be today going that route at the time and what the world was going through. So that's kind of where I started. Now I'm entering my 5th year of practice, and that's where we're at right now.
It's crazy to think that COVID was 4 years ago, like when it came on the scene, as of, the time of this recording. But no, I appreciate you sharing that. And I think we've got a lot of things to unpack, and that's just a good place to start. It's kind of where our paths connected, and who you serve. I think is really important, that we'll talk about as we go. And I think the first place I want to dive into is a little bit on what made you want to open up on your own. You said it so assertively, like you're always going to open up on your own, but that's not for everyone. So for people that are listening to this and they want to own their own business one day, they might not ever get to be at that certain level that you were at. So just talk a little bit about the mindset that you had about coming out of school and starting off on your own, doing your own thing.
Yeah, so several factors went into it. And I know everyone's going to start from a different standpoint. I was fortunate enough to be married and have a supporting income, right? So I could do the things I wanted early on. Not everyone is in that situation. So, everyone has their own unique way of getting there. But um, my wife teases me, and I never knew a term for it until I met you and you explained this to me. But in a good way, and some people won't understand this unless you have this conversation or explain it after I say it. But I always knew I was going to be unemployable. So I always knew that there's a certain way I want things done. There's a certain vision I have, and I'm not going to let someone else call the shots or keep me from reaching that level I want to get to. And so my wife, obviously, she's a nurse, so obviously she has an employer, and this laugh, she's like, you can never do what I do because you would have a boss. And I say, well, in a way, I take that as a compliment, because I know she means it as a compliment. But I'm always in the mindset of, if you know where you want to be one day, then why not just go through what you have to suffer early on to get there sooner? Because, if you're eventually going to be in this circumstance where you're on your own, if you can do it and you can make it through the early, hard stages, then just get it over with. Like, I can't believe it's already year 5. And some people may be scared to take that leap initially. And then they're 5 years down the road and they're like, well, if I would just start 5 years ago, I'd be in a good spot now. So I'm always in the mindset of just do it and get it over with and get to where you want to be sooner than later. So that was just kind of my mindset going in is I'm gonna make it work. Like there's no will it work? It is gonna work, but how am I gonna make it work is the thing. So I never let myself think, oh, it can't work. It is gonna work.
Right.
How can I make it happen?
I love it. I love it. I believe it's a Stoic that I can't remember exactly who it was. Maybe it was Marcus Aurelius that said we often suffer greatly in our minds or in our own head, and I think that that's a barrier for a lot of people. I appreciate what you said there about suffering early and just getting it out of the way, right? And I think that a lot of people don't want to lean into that suffering, and the first place where the suffering occurs is in their head. That's the first barrier. The fear creeps in, the worry, um, the anxiety. I use that word not like on a clinical, clinical therapy level, but more so on just anxious, like the state of being anxious. And one of my favorite quotes is really the only difference between anxiety and excitement is the presence of negative emotion. And I think a lot of people get very emotionally caught up in a decision that they have to make. And when they're not certain on the decision that they want to make with their life, with their business, then that leads to anxiety and a negative emotional state. And so coming out of the gate, coming out of chiropractic school, um, knowing that you wanted to serve your community in rural Illinois, I didn't get a whiff of negative emotion there. I got pure excitement from you, passion to serve your community. So it was really, really cool to hear you unpack that just a little bit. And I think a lot of people will be encouraged to hear what you have to say because they're in this a very similar scenario. So that leads me to my next question for you, which would be, you started this thing from scratch, right? Well done. A lot of people struggle to do so. What resources did you look to or did you turn to in order to make some decisions along the way? You know, maybe what guidance did you receive along the way your first couple of years in business?
Great question. So the first piece of advice, I can't even remember who told me. Maybe I read in a book, I don't know. But is when you're looking for advice in any aspect, you want to be talking to the people that not only have the same mindset as you, but have essentially what you want eventually. So if you're wanting to be a functional rehab chiropractor like we are, then you need to be talking to people who run successful functional rehab chiropractic clinics or run a schedule like you do or run a pay system like whatever it is. So I just tried to surround myself with people that were succeeding in the realm that I want to be in one day. So if you are talking to people that you know more than, you're not going to get anywhere. You need to surround yourself with people who are smarter than you, who are more successful than you, who will call you out when you need called out, who will give you advice when you need advice, and who will be there when you're down. So I think the first aspect was surrounding myself with people that were going to help me reach my goals because you can't do it alone. No matter, what anyone says, at some point you're going to need help or you're going to need someone in your corner. And so I think that was like the first thing I did was I looked around and I said, these people need to be in my corner. And so that's kind of how I navigated those waters early on.
So it was more so looking up and out as opposed to looking down and in, right? And that's
Mhm.
one of the mindsets that I appreciate about you because I'm in the similar camp. Like I get to interview people on this podcast and I get to talk to people that are head and shoulders, superior to me in clinical and business. They make more money than I do. They've written more books than I have. I haven't written a book, successfully all the way through. So there's one aspect of it where you could view a comparison, like you start to compare what other people have done. And that's not what I hear from you. It's basically what does someone have that I want, as opposed to what does someone have that I don't want, and I'm not going to listen to them. Like why take advice from from I think even Alex Hormozy recently maybe got into a bit of trouble online when he posted, why take fitness or nutrition advice from someone who's obese, or why take marriage advice from someone who's divorced. I mean, those are some strong statements, but there's an element of truth in them. There's also, that there's some counterpoints that there are people that can share what not to do from the same realm. But I think uh, going into any interaction with a bit of humility, what can I learn from someone? I think that that's ultimately what I'm hearing you say, and that's why we're in community together, because we think a lot alike when it comes to that.
Mhm.
I'm not above anyone. I don't sit on any, I'm not in any ivory tower, I think they call it. We're all in this, so to speak, in this trench together. And I'm the same. I like to talk to people that are head and shoulders above me and see what they know. So at the very least, learn what they know. But yeah, no, kudos to you. Well done. So you took some classes with us at Midwest, and then you started to realize there are some other aspects to your business that you want to improve and shore up, and maybe even revitalize within your business. And so um, this topic of business coaching came up. And so just tell us and our listeners about what you were looking for and the reason behind looking into some business coaching before you ever signed up with us.
So everyone at some point when they run a business that's going in a good direction is going to run into either a scheduling conflict, burnout, or they're just going to plateau. Like they're going to reach a peak. And at that crossroads, they're either going to be able to scale successfully or they're going to try to scale and it's going to really hurt their business. So I'm a lone wolf. I do everything. I'm a solo practitioner. So I was getting to the point where, I was working 14 hours a day and treating patients is the easiest part of my day. It's all the other business stuff you have to do, especially when you have no help in the office. So I was getting to the point where something had to give, especially since the clinic has been rapidly growing over the last 4 years. Each year it was tremendously growing, and it was happening at a rate I knew eventually was going to be an issue if I don't address it now. So kind of like what we try to preach to our patients, don't wait till you fall apart, get on top of things early and it's a lot better in the long run. Same thing in business. When you can sniff out an issue that's going to be happening sooner than later, don't just keep kicking the can down the road. And so I was getting to that point where I wasn't sure how to scale correctly or smoothly where it doesn't negatively impact my current business or my current patients, how to address my scheduling, how to address systems in my clinic to make things more efficient where I don't have to work 14 hours a day, things like that. Because now I'm a dad, and thankfully, if I hadn't been going through the business coaching for over a year now, I would probably be doing the same thing I was a year and a half ago. And that's not the dad or husband I want to be, which is at work all the time. I want to make a very good living for my family while providing patients with high quality care, while being present with my family, making a good income, all that stuff. So that was a decision for me once you had started talking about chasing the business coaching venture. It was really meant to be because it was the right timing where things were in my head like in the next year I have to do something, or it might get kind of bad for business because I'm not going to be able to handle what's coming my way. So just having someone else to talk through things with, someone who's done it longer than me, someone who's done it better than me, someone who has helped many people and has great experience. That's why I said, okay, enough's enough. Let's just do this now.
Well, I appreciate that, and I don't necessarily think I've done it better than you. If only I would say that one of the reasons I looked into a business coach was I wanted to. Okay, going back a minute ago, where we talked about having desiring and pushing and striving towards a state. I'll call it a state. It's almost like a state of mind that someone else has that I was, attracted towards, was one of the reasons why I hired a coach. But one of the prerequisites, if you'd like, is I wanted my coach to have a coach. I didn't just want my coach to be, telling us that we need coaching, but they weren't getting coaching themselves, and so that was important to me, and so that just that fed this desire to constantly improve, constantly learn, constantly apply what I had learned. And that's kind of the mantra that I have with you and with the rest of our coaching clients. But it came from a place of I have this vision of where I feel called, as a clinic owner and as a man of faith and as a leader of my family. I have a very strong conviction on where we're headed, and I don't know how to get there. So I searched for a coach to help me get there. But I wanted to make sure the coach was also learning, right? Not that they've just done a one-trick show or a one-trick pony, I think it's called, and they've got a successful business. And that's ultimately where I landed with Paul. But I'm trying to do the same for people like you. I'm trying to get more Koltens in my world because I see the potential. And if you haven't had the chance to be treated by Kolten, you're missing out. Fantastic clinician, great hands. Worked on my knee at the intermission of one of the classes where I was teaching. And, I think that what we have in the functional rehab model is a certain skill set that the rest of our profession are either not willing or incapable of applying in their own higher volume clinic, which is fine. The higher volume business model does work, but for those of us that want lower volume, higher paying customers, that also works. And one thing I wanted to talk about is with you, Kolten, is this middleman. And you and I have talked about how the middleman is the one that is always going to be a lone wolf, always going to be spinning their wheels. And the middleman is someone who charges middle of the rate, middle of the pack rates, and sees about the middle of the pack in terms of volume. So middle volume and middle rates is a recipe for disaster. And you were in that stage. You were in that medium. And so tell our listeners a little bit about your journey when it comes to your clinical skills and your business skills and the growth that you've seen over the last 12 plus months.
Yeah, so like Alex said, I was getting to the point where I was established enough in the community. I have built a brand that was attractive to the people I was trying to bring in my doors. Well, with that being said, the way I practice is very not only mentally demanding, but it's very physically demanding for the practitioner. And so, I was still, I like to think, charging a respectable rate, but now looking back, it wasn't. I was actually
Okay, what were
working,
your rates? What were your rates?
it was $65 for half an hour. And so at the end of the day, you take out and you're not keeping the full 65. Part of it goes towards taxes, part of it goes towards overhead, part of it goes, here and there. And yeah, I'm billing a lot of money, but look how much I'm working. And that wasn't reasonable and it's not sustainable. And so when I come home, and I'm a very active person, when I come home and I'm just like beat, that, and then I start, talking with you and stuff. I'm like, okay, I have to do this. It's not sustainable. And, we're starting a family and that's just not the man I want to be. So then that's where our journey started. And now, things are so much better. I'm home a lot more. Like today, I just took today off to be with the family. I would have never been able to do that 3 years ago, let alone thought to do it. So now, I'm taking days off to be with the family. I've changed my hours. I'm getting more new patients than I ever have. I'm making a way better income. I'm providing better clinical outcomes because I'm feeling better myself. I'm not tired all the time. I'm not burning out, anything like that. So that impacts your patients as well. So I'm providing a higher quality of care because I have focused on myself and my family before business. And it's actually made my business even better. So my clinic in the year, so year 3 to 1, it like quadrupled. But as soon as I started business coaching, when I was getting to that peak, we essentially doubled my clinic in a year. And now when people hear that, they're probably like, okay, well, something's lacking, whether it's family life or your lack of detailed care. Actually, no, my family life is great. My marriage is great. I'm with my child a lot. My clinical outcomes are better than they've been. My patients are more satisfied than they were, and I'm not burnt out. and my clinic's still almost double. So that speaks volumes into the things we talk about and the things you help us with, to make things more efficient, make things just more sustainable long term, because I'm hoping to do this for 30 more years. And it definitely was not going to happen that way if I hadn't started this last year.
Well, I appreciate the kind words, and obviously I wanted you on to share that exact, story, to share that that journey that you've been on, because so many people are in currently where you were 3 years ago. There's a lot of people in the functional rehab world that are constantly struggling every month, wondering how they can reach certain financial metrics, um, which is more of a business skill than it is a clinical skill. And probably the number one thing I hear when I talk to prospects when they're interested in learning more, whether it's our innovator program or our joining our mastermind group, it's they share with me when I ask them, what type of practice they have and this and that. They share with me all of their certifications and all of their professional credibility and their professional development. They share with me their clinical career growth. And then when I ask them, and where have you learned, or where have you grown in running your business? Because that requires a different set of skills. There's crickets. And I know there's going to be crickets. I know there's going to be very little interest in growing business skills, but that's what gets people in the door. For example, you can get certified in McKinsey, DNS, ART, like you name the certification, but if nobody knows you exist, what good is the certification? Right. And so there's a lot of people right now listening to this that are going to think, I'm in that scenario. What advice would you give someone that's on the fence, that know that this is not sustainable? To rephrase what you said, this wasn't sustainable. What advice would you give someone who's on the fence, knows that they probably need to make a change? What advice would you give them?
Just book a discovery call with Alex. And no, he didn't tell me to say that. I promise you. Just book a call. Just Alex will hop on a call with you, and he'll just hear what you're worried about. He'll give you his thoughts and ideas, and if you guys gel, great. If not, no harm, no foul, is worth a shot. But as I tell Alex all the time, excuse me, the worst thing that can happen is someone says no. That's the worst. You never know until you try. So if you guys aren't a good fit, whatever, but I guarantee you, if you book that call just to see if business coaching is for you, you're not going to regret it. And if you're at the road where it's not sustainable, the longer you push it down the road, the worse it's going to get. I promise you that. There's not going to be some magical thing you come across overnight that changes your trajectory. It's a process. We've been working over a year, and there's still things we're working the kinks out on. But it's a process. So if you start later, it's going to be later when you get to where you want to be. Just start it now. Just book the call, do it. And you're going to be thankful you did.
Well, I appreciate that, and maybe I'll Venmo you $20 for the recommendation. No, I'm just kidding. No, but I very rarely put this out there, but I do say on some of the discovery calls that I can guarantee nothing. Right? I can listen to your business. I can listen to the obstacles in your way. I can't guarantee you that the strategies that I have, the tips and tricks that I have to help you grow and scale your business, I can't guarantee that they'll work. What I can guarantee is if you don't make a change, nothing will work.
Mm-hmm.
So share a little bit with us to kind of wrap up here, Kolten. Share a little bit about personal growth. Going through the last 12 plus months, I think it's important to highlight just the type of person you were coming in to the program 12 plus months ago. It was probably last January. So I think we're about 12, 13 months into it by now. Tell the listeners just a little bit about your growth as a person, as a business owner, and as a clinician. I think that would be really insightful because I've seen it, right? To give it a little context, I have seen tremendous growth from you, but I want to get your perspective first before I talk a little bit more about what I've seen.
So I think the biggest thing professionally is how to communicate. like just working on certain communication skills and phrasing and just the way to approach certain conversations, certain personalities, certain patients, things like that. That alone has tremendously improved just patient compliance, patient outcomes, you know, um, credibility as a practitioner, things like that. Um, if you can't communicate effectively, a lot of times in the real world, it doesn't matter how good you are with your hands. If you can't clearly communicate to your patient what's going on, the expectations, what you need from them, address their concerns, then that no matter how good you are, your outcomes aren't going to be as good as what you think you're worth. So professionally, it's been the communication and learning how to um, dig deep into people, get them to uh, essentially not only trust you as a practitioner, but fully understand like what your goals are for them, why you are the practitioner that can help them, learning how to listen and all that. So just honestly, communication's the number one thing professionally.
I'm like sitting over here kind of, applauding you, because a lot of the clinical courses, right? To give you guys a little background, Midwest started as a education entity for rehab clinicians, right? And we wanted to teach, low back rehab, post-surgical rehab, dry needling. We want to teach all of the clinical continuing education courses. And I found a common theme amongst every rehab professional, right? Nearly at the end of every class, people would come up to us, whoever the speaker was or myself, and they would ask us, in essence, a communication-based question. How do I communicate to my patient what we're trying to accomplish? How do I communicate this different business model? How do I communicate this treatment and what it's doing? It was always how to communicate. And I realized that business coaching is nothing more than communication. That's it. Business coaching is how to communicate more effectively, which would be how to do things the right way. And also business communications, did I say efficiently or effectively? How to do things efficiently is doing things the right way. How to do things effectively is making sure you're doing the right things. And that's communication. Also, how to communicate consequences with patients with dropping off and not sticking through their plan of care in an ethical way. So there's layers and layers to communication, and it is an art down to your tone. And I know we talked about on one of our first calls, we talked about how we can downplay, or we can actually take our voices down when we're trying to say something to stick. And we can take something up when we're really trying to show that we're excited about something. Someone's seeing some improvement. We're getting excited. Our voice is going up, right? And that's all nonverbal, or that's like the little soft skills when it comes to communication. And the reason I bring this up is because nearly at least 4 or 5 times a year, a paper will come out and it'll talk about the non-clinical aspects of care, which some people call the soft skills of care. And the number one reason why people attribute their recovery comes down to communication, how the provider communicated the recovery to the patient. But if I were to go out there and say, here we go, join my masterclass in communication, join my masterclass for patient communication, I think like 3 people would sign up, right? But if I were to say, we're going to do a dry needling class, 30, 40, 50 people would be interested in taking it because it's a clinical course. And clinical courses are sexy. Communication is not a sexy skill. So it really does mean a lot that that's the first thing that comes to mind for you, is the improvement and the growth on your communication. So someone once said on a recent group call, someone said that one of the things that they noticed about themselves, because I challenged them on a lot of our calls, I challenged to actively listen. And I mean, actively listen to your patients. And one of the gentlemen on the call said, I found myself actively listening at home. I found myself actively listening with my kids. I found myself actively listening at church. I found myself actively listening at the drive-through when you would know, otherwise just it'd be a normal interaction between humans left and right. And I find myself actively listening. So here I was trying to challenge people to connect with their patients on a deeper level. Meanwhile, this dude took this and just it amplified into other areas of his life, that's ultimately the goal. Because we're humans helping humans, we're people helping people. So I can't thank you enough for sharing that. Man, a lot of good thoughts, a lot of good insights here. Where can people learn more about you, and where can they follow you? Maybe if they're on socials, where can they learn more about Kolten Pedigo, expert clinician in Marion, Illinois?
So I have to put a disclaimer in here on my Instagram handle. There's a story behind it. But anyways, it's si.athlete.chiropractor. Instagram is my biggest form of social media. But when I made that, it was supposed to stand for Southern Illinois Athlete Chiropractor. And then all my friends and all these people kept going, do you like specialize in SI joint dysfunction? Like what is the story behind your handle? I'm like, that's not what I was going for. I was going for an easy way for people to pick out, my brand and where I practice and stuff. So it actually stands for Southern Illinois. But if you want to think of it as SI joint dysfunction, athlete chiropractor, go ahead.
That's where all the athletes with SI issues go. They go to you. No, I'm just kidding. I've
Yeah,
never even
yeah.
thought of that, because I obviously I knew that you're in Southern Illinois, and I know that seeing and treating athletes as you are a former and current athlete, that fit your brand well. I didn't even think of that, but we'll make sure we include that in the show notes today so people could get a link. There you go. For SEO, we could get some backlinks to your website, get you some credibility there. Any closing comments, questions?
No, thanks for having me. Thanks for what you do. And if you're someone listening to this and you are at that peak, or you are within 1 year of envisioning big issues coming up with scheduling, burnout, things of that nature, just book a call with Alex. The worst thing that can happen is you learn a little bit more about yourself and where you want to take things, and you learn more about Alex. But just book the call, do yourself a favor, and just don't procrastinate. The same things we teach our patients to do. Let's not be hypocrites. Let's just get ahead of it before it becomes an issue.
Excellent. Awesome, Colton. Thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. We'll have this up in the next couple of days, and we'll make sure we share it on socials and everything. As I have found myself wrapping up these calls, I really admire a lot of the people I get to work with. I really enjoy them. And I know a lot of coaches do, but I found myself saying this as a reminder to myself, but also to the clients, which is I give you permission to go be successful. I think sometimes we need to just hear that you have been given permission. And if no one's going to do it, well, dang it, I will. I'll let you know that it's okay to be successful, however you determine or define the word success or successful. For me in Kolten, it means on a Thursday, here we are at our homes, wives and kids around, but not a bother. They're just around. And to me, that's ultimately the freedom that we strive to attain and to achieve. So if that's you and you want some of the freedom and the time that Colton and I are discussing on today's call, he's right. Book a call. I'll have the link in the show notes. I'd love to chat with you and learn more about your business. But again, I give you permission to be successful. Thanks again, Colton, for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.